We're a proud member of the Paranormality Podcast Network. This episode is sponsored by DreamHost, web hosting with a purpose. Welcome to the show. I'm Jack Kirby, and this is Paranormality, paranormal podcast we listen to. Be sure to check us out on all our social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And also, if you want to get in on the conversation, join our Facebook group, Paranormal Podcasts We Listen To. All the links are going to be in the show notes. On this episode, I had a great time talking with Liz from the Ghost Gal podcast. Now, Liz is a paranormal investigator in the Michigan area. So her podcast is very unique in the fact that you can actually go on these paranormal investigations with her. But to hear more about it, let's talk to Liz. Hello, Liz. Thanks for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Let's talk about your podcast. What is your podcast about, and where can people find it?
So the podcast, Ghost Gal Podcast, is about paranormal investigations and histories. Those are two of my passions, so I kind of combine them. And really, paranormal investigations and history go hand in hand. But you can find it on most of the major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Anchor. So, yeah, you can find it pretty much everywhere.
Awesome. And all those links are going to be in the show notes, so definitely check those out. What I really like about your podcast is when you listen to it, it's like you're watching like Ghost Hunters, but you don't get the distraction of seeing all the crap that they want you to see. You just get to hear and listen to the investigation, and I really like that.
Oh, thank you so much. Yes, that's exactly what I want the listener to feel and to experience. Sometimes some of the things that happen are visual, which is why I'll try to explain that during the show itself. But yeah, just so you can really focus in and listen, and, you don't have all the chaotic and the theatrics and all that kind of stuff.
When you were 8, you said that was when you had your first paranormal experience.
Yes.
What was that? And did that lead you into going into paranormal investigation?
Yeah, it did. So when I was about 8 years old, I was staying at my cousin's house, and she lived in an really old home, maybe built in the late 1800s. And for whatever reason, we decided we wanted to sleep in the basement. And so the bathroom was up on the the second floor of the home. So we were walking up there. We passed through the living room, and walking up the stairs, we saw a little boy standing behind us. And we assumed that it was her younger brother. And so we're just kind of, not saying anything, so we didn't want to wake anybody up. And we continued on up the stairs, and he followed us up there. Passing her brother's room, we saw that he was actually asleep in his bed. So on the way back down the stairs, we saw that same little boy standing over by the Christmas tree. And we panicked, and we ran back down to the basement where we were sleeping. And the light bulb above the bar exploded when we were talking about what we had just experienced. And at that point, we were really freaked out, and we took off back up to the second floor. And we told our parents and our family about it. Nobody believed us because, they just didn't.
When you're kids, they tend not to believe you.
Right. Yeah. They're like, oh, no, you guys were just dreaming or whatever. But it's like, well, we didn't have the same dream. So, yeah, that really led us to kind of explore more into that. So we didn't know it at the time, but we were doing EVP sessions. We just had it was like the late 80s. So I had like a little boombox type thing. And we just left that recorder running to see if we found anything, or we were kind of asking questions. We were very curious. And then we started exploring the history of the home, and it took off from there. So I've been interested in the paranormal since I was a little kid.
When you were looking for stuff, Did you find you were finding more stuff, or did it kind of just quit?
You know, I don't think we really experienced anything else in the home. So I don't know if what we were seeing was maybe what they call a residual haunting, because that little boy never really interacted with us. I mean, aside from following us up the stairs, we said stuff to him because we assumed it was her little brother. We said, Joey, what are you doing? And the little boy didn't respond. He didn't react or move. And then when we saw him at the Christmas tree too, he wasn't really interacting with us. So
it was like a static image of his former self.
yeah,
Okay.
that's what it's. Yeah, so nothing, as far as I know, nothing really more happened. But I had never seen that boy again after all the years that I had gone over there.
I actually lived in a haunted building for a short time, and I never personally had any experiences there. But all my friends that were over there when I wasn't there had something weird happen to them, like footsteps coming up the stairs, doors shutting, glass breaking.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, one of my friends was sitting up in it was an upstairs apartment in a downtown building, and he was sitting upstairs watching TV. My fan blade broke off, causing the fan to hit the 8-foot fluorescent light bulb that was right on top of him.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, and then other friends that spent the night there, they said they'd hear footsteps coming up the steps, the door opening, the door closing. But I never experienced any of it.
I wonder, maybe if you experienced stuff, but maybe kind of brushed it off thinking, or, not even really thinking about it. Just, if you hear something, sometimes you don't, automatically assume it's paranormal.
Right.
Or maybe if they're more open to it, or do you find yourself like being open to paranormal experiences?
Oh yeah. No, I've had several others, but I just thought that was interesting that like they would always experience it. And I don't know if it's because I was the actual owner of the building, and apparently the guy was a lawyer, and the building had always been on the downstairs a clothing store until
Okay.
I moved in and put a tattoo shop there.
Oh.
He actually died. There was a common hall, and his apartment was across the hall, and he died in the bathtub there.
Oh.
Yeah, I found all that out after I bought the building. It was pretty cool, though. It was some really
Yeah.
interesting history.
Yeah, that sounds like it.
When was your first paranormal investigation, and did anything actually happen that first time you went out?
So my first paranormal investigation, aside from just kind of, doing stuff at home or kind of around with friends, was probably about, let me see now, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. In in my hometown in Royal Oak, Michigan. I actually went with my mom and my sister. There was a paranormal group putting on a public ghost hunt or paranormal investigation.
Oh, that would be awesome. Like my town never had anything cool like that.
Yeah, it's really great. A lot of groups in in Metro Detroit area have a lot of what they call like their home base, and they kind of partner up with a historical society or, excuse me, something of that nature. And it's great because that also brings awareness to the paranormal field, but it also raises money for those historical sites, which I really like.
They do. They go hand in hand, the
Hmm.
paranormal and the historical. And to have somebody who can back what you're saying up is always pretty awesome.
Yeah, yeah, it is. And, they know so much of the history of that, particular building or area. And that kind of helps build up your investigation. When you have some like names that you can use to try to maybe call out to an entity or spirit. So yeah, it really, really helps.
Well, that was like on your last episode where you were doing the EVP work and you were actually calling them by name.
Hmm. Yeah. Yep. And so the Star Children, my one of my fellow investigators, Kenzie and I, we are really interested in working with children's spirits, and the Star Children really seem to be drawn to us. So if any men or anything go up into that what we call the nursery room, all the activity stops. But when Kenzie and I go up there, we usually interact with them, especially Georgie, the young boy. But yeah, that's our main interest. I mean, we communicate with whoever will communicate with us, but we do enjoy.
How many times have you been to that the for the Star Children at that house?
The Star House, oh man, probably at least 20 to 30 times. Our Before I joined our paranormal team into the Afterlife Paranormal, that's actually how I started investigating, was going to their events. Um, so we had gone there. They usually had put on maybe 2 or 3 a month, and we would almost go to all of them. So yeah, probably at least 20 to 30 times, I would say.
And did anything different happen each time you went, or did a lot of the same things
Yeah,
happen?
it's different pretty much every time we go. I mean, sometimes we go and we get absolutely nothing. And that's just part of investigating is, they're not performing for you. It's if they're there and they feel like talking. So yeah, sometimes we get nothing at all, and sometimes nights are really active. I've only really had one negative experience there. And it was definitely not the Star Children that we were talking to. We were up in the nursery, and we were using some kind of app or something on Kenzie's phone, and we were getting some really weird messages, something like murder and something else. And we're like, yeah, like this isn't normal. This isn't right. And then we heard a low growl through the spirit box. And just the negative energy, I mean, you could just feel it, and the room was really heavy, and we were really uncomfortable, and we just ended it then. We're like, sorry, we're done. Like, this isn't the Star Kids. And yeah, that was the only time we ever really had a negative experience there.
Yeah, that'd freak me out. Uh, just having that kind of negative thing happen, I don't think I'd want to go back.
Yeah, I mean, we still go back. I mean, because that is really the only time we've ever had something bad. And I don't know what it was that night, but it was not. It was not okay.
Now, with Stan, was that in the same house, or was that a different investigation altogether?
Oh, Stan, that was completely different investigation. That was actually up in Houghton Lake, Michigan, at it's now a restaurant, Clive and Dot's Anchor Inn, I believe. The upstairs used to be a brothel, and we were investigating up there, and we started communicating again with a little boy named Stan. He really came through. That was the most activity we had that night. I haven't really found out much information about him, because if there were kids and births and stuff like that weren't really kept in the brothel. They had said that a lot of kids and babies, unfortunately passed away in that time. So
I was gonna say that's one EVP that you can actually hear really well.
yeah, I was surprised at, because at first in the night we weren't really getting anything, and we're kind of going room to room, and we got some really good EVPs in that one room with Stan. He was really enjoying, I believe that's in the episode. He was really enjoying the K2 meter and the lights, and he was really interacting with us with that. So that was fun.
So, for people who don't know, what are all these instruments you're talking about?
So the K2 meter is an EMF detector, electromagnetic field. So all of that is pretty natural. I mean, a lot of things in the earth give off electromagnetic fields. So you're looking for fluctuations in that, because it's believed that entities, paranormal, give off EMFs. And so sometimes you'll see those spikes.
Do you want to find other paranormal, conspiracy, horror, and sci-fi podcasts? Visit paranormalityradio.com.
But it has like 5 lights on it. So, ranging from green up like yellow, orange, red. Everybody uses those differently. And I like to use it for asking questions, lighting up a certain amount of dots for yes or no, and going that way.
Yeah, I heard you doing that a lot. You would say like 2 for no, 3 for yes, and
Yeah. Yep. And, some investigators like to they'll even say, don't do any lights for no and, light it up for yes. But to me, it's like, I want some confirmation that I'm communicating with somebody. So that's why I like to ask for some kind of dots for no. Sometimes it doesn't, light up. So it's like, that doesn't always necessarily mean no. Maybe they just don't want to talk to you anymore. So we do use that a lot. And I try to use some instruments, some of the tools like in conjunction. So I don't really just rely on one piece at a time. And when we're using the K2 meter, just because that spikes, I mean, that could be your cell phone or, something else going off. So I try to use that in conjunction with just even how we're feeling, how the energy feels in the room, stuff like that. So
did you ever get any of the tools that were on your wish list yet?
yes, I did. I actually got the Boo Buddy. So that's the main one that I got on my wish list, and I'm so excited to start using it. We've used it a little, now that COVID has hit. I haven't been out investigating, but we've been investigating our own house.
Yeah, that kind of put a squash on everything, especially depending on where you lived.
Yeah, and even some of the places around here that we normally investigate, like and do our public ghost hunts, aren't ready for us until mid-September, which we usually start in April.
Now, wasn't that state? Didn't they stay on lockdown longer than pretty much every state? Because I'm in Florida, we're pretty much back to normal.
Oh yeah. I think we were. I think we were on lockdown longer.
Yeah, I know a lot of the northern states did. I mean, we were locked down for maybe a month, if that.
Oh yeah, because I did see on the news a lot of places opening up right away in Florida, and the beaches and stuff.
Yeah, that COVID, it really put a number on everything.
Yeah, it really did. Yeah. I got my new tool and I wanted to go out, but so our house, we just been investigating our house, which was built in 1846. So we've had some fun doing that, and that's actually going to be the next episode.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what do you have for your upcoming episodes?
Yeah, so actually this weekend, we're just putting the final touches on it. Just normalizing some of the volume. Sometimes those spikes or whatever, but that'll be coming out this weekend. And then we have a couple more in the back, the Eloise Psychiatric Hospital and the Old Mill. I think those are the next couple ones that'll be coming out.
So do you find at psychiatric hospitals there's more action there than there are at other places?
That was the first psychiatric hospital that I investigated. But yeah, I think, again, I mentioned energy a lot, but I think that has a lot to do with it. The amount of people that went through there and, some of the ones that you see on TV, I think some of those terrible things that happen to those patients, I would imagine that energy leaves a residual negative.
I would imagine so, because that's just so many people in such a condensed space who've had so much trauma that I can see where that would leave some negative energy behind. That's why I figured they were a little bit more active than most.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we did get a lot of activity at the Eloise Psychiatric Hospital. And I mean, it was a very large group going through, so I kind of feel like maybe some of it was not as intense. When there's large groups, I feel like it almost kind of, for lack of a better term, scares away that activity. But that was good time. That we heard I heard some low growls, and there was a bed in there, and they, one of the legends or rumors is that if you lay on that bed, that somebody holds you down. So we always use my husband as the guinea pig.
Oh, I would try it. I would try it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, he did, and he didn't get held down, but he was a good sport for us.
So if someone wanted to get into paranormal investigation, what's some advice and tips and tricks you could give them?
Well, I think looking to see what some of the local paranormal groups are doing, that's a great way to get started. Going to their events and public ghost hunts.
Does your website take forever to load? If so, you're probably losing valuable traffic. But that's okay because there's DreamHost. DreamHost is a web hosting service with a variety of packages to fit any budget. In fact, WordPress recommends them as one of the top 3 hosting services. Click the link in the description, find out a little bit more about DreamHost and how they can help you.
That's a fabulous way. And then you can kind of start building connections and finding out where other investigations are and getting some ideas. And the other thing I like to tell people when we do we do some stuff for kids that are interested in paranormal investigations. So I like to tell them, when you're trying to do EVPs and trying to communicate with spirits, they were people once. So I don't like when people go in and start demanding things and demanding that you speak to us, or like you see on some of the ghost shows where they're antagonizing them. Just be polite and you'll get more responses that way.
That really works in the real world too. I wish people would try that more.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. That's good advice for the living too.
So what are some things they shouldn't do?
Definitely be cautious with what you're trying to interact with. Don't start invoking things that you are not prepared to take on. There are, I believe there are demonic entities out there, and that's not something that you should really mess with.
So what are your thoughts on taking Ouija boards and stuff when you investigate the paranormal?
Actually, I think Ouija boards are another great tool. But again, just be cautious with what you're trying to bring forth. And it's important to set your intentions. I always set guidelines when I'm out investigating to kind of protect myself and the people I'm with, just saying I'm here to, communicate with so-and-so, or just, a spirit. But yeah, definitely intention matters.
That's some great advice.
Oh, thanks.
What is your favorite podcast that you're listening to right now?
Paranormal wise, or just in general?
Just in general. Doesn't necessarily have to be paranormal.
Okay. So the 2 podcasts that I listen to the most are the History Chicks and Historical Podcast. And those are both history podcasts. Yeah, I really like them. It's a history lesson, but it doesn't feel like it, it's great. They're just kind of talking to you and you're listening to a story. It's fabulous. I love them.
See, that's what I'm scared about with history podcasts. It's going to sound like I'm just getting a lecture from some professor in some hall somewhere.
Right. Yeah. It's just droning on and just kind of being talked at. But yeah, no, these are great.
One more time, where can everybody find you?
You can find me on social media, and you can also find the podcast on Apple, on Stitcher, on Spotify, on Anchor, on any major podcast platform.
All right, Liz, thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Well, that's it for this week's episode. If you like the show, go ahead and share it with all your friends. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Go knock on your neighbor's door. So until next week, I'm Jack.